sharing my screen, and I'm starting with my session now. Okay. Once you see my screen.
Yes, Jackie, we can see your screen.
Okay. So guys, like the agenda for this meetup, like how to create a Anypoint VPC, how to create a VPN, and how to create a dedicated load balancer. So this is our first Surat live demonstration meetup. In past we have done 4 or 5 meetup, but this is our first live demonstration meetup. So the organization for the meetup is myself and the Nitish. Nitish, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, Jackie. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Nitish Jain. I work for IBM. I'm from Bangalore, and it's been 2 years working for MuleSoft, and I'm certified MuleSoft developer and architect. And welcome all.
Thanks, Nitish, for the introduction. Then, like myself will be the speaker for this particular session, and like the agenda for today's meetup is like we will go with like what is VPC, why we required VPC, what are the different use cases where we required the VPC, why required VPN, why we required dedicated load balancer, which will follow up with like 6-7 demonstration. Okay, so let me start. What is a VPC? What is virtual private cloud? So why we required a VPC? So basically VPC stands for virtual private cloud, and it allows you to create a logical and isolated network in the cloud where you can deploy or run the resources securely. And MuleSoft Cloud Hub is a multi-tenant integration platform as a service. Let me explain this statement. What does this mean? So generally, let's consider what happens when you deploy your application into the Cloud Hub. So generally, when you deploy your application into Cloud Hub, so you select the region. So that application deployed within some region, within some availability zone. Just okay. So that application deployed within some availability zone basically. So in that case, what happens? So basically, you haven't created any kind of VPC or anything. You are simply deploying your application to Cloud Hub. So there's a word called multi-tenant integration platform as a service. What does this multi-tenant means? So when you deploy an application into Cloud Hub, right, you don't know where your application will deploy, in which subnet your application will get deployed, in which network your application will get deployed. You are not aware of all those things. You simply select the region and you don't know where your application will get deployed. So generally there is a other client. Okay, so let any XYZ client, he is also deploying the application. Okay, and he also don't know where his application will land up in that particular infrastructure, in particular data center, but he knows the reason. In this particular region I want to deploy my application. In such case, what happen? So there might be possibility they like multiple client can share the network. See, there is no, they will definitely share the network. So basically I have deployed my one application in one subnet, so there might be possibility the other client may also other client application may get also deployed in the same subnet. So because the subnet is shared across the multiple clients, so that's why it is known as a multi-tenant platform. So the network is shared across the multiple client, so that is why it is known as a multi-tenant integration platform as a service. So that's why if you want to create your own isolated network, so you want to make sure my application get deployed in that particular region, in that particular space, in that particular subnet. So in that case you go with VPC, right? So you get some security. Basically you are not sharing your resources with the other clients, right? You have your own VPC, you have your own space where you are deploying your application. That is the one of the use case why we create a VPC. Anypoint VPC allows you to extend your corporate network and allows Cloud Hub worker to connect resource behind the firewall. So when you let's consider you have deployed the application in the Cloud Hub, and that particular application in the Cloud Hub has to access the resources which is available on-premise data center or in private cloud like AWS or Azure or whatever. In that case, you have to set up the VPC, and then you can set up a VPN between your Cloud Hub network and your on-premise data center or private cloud. This is the second use case you require the VPC for setting up a VPN between your Cloud Hub or your Anypoint platform and on-premise data center, right? So the application deployed on the Cloud Hub can access this databases, services which is available in your corporate network or in your corporate data center. So there are three techniques can be achieved for VPN. One is the secure VPN tunnel, that is IPsec tunneling. Then there is a private AWS using VPC peering and AWS direct connect. So what is a VPC peering? So first I will explain a VPC peering and when you have to go with a VPC peering. So let's consider the Anypoint platform, a cloud hub, is also in the AWS. The cloud behind the Anypoint platform is the AWS. Let's consider if you want to access some services from the AWS private cloud. So you have a database, you have SAP system in the AWS private cloud, right? And the cloud hub want to access those services, right? In that case, you have to create a Anypoint VPC in the cloud hub in the same region where your service exists in the AWS. So basically, AWS VPC and your cloud hub VPC must be in the same region. All your services running in the cloud hub, okay, under the VPC must be in the same region as the Anypoint VPC. They must be in the same region. Then you can set up a VPC peering between Anypoint like Anypoint cloud and the AWS private cloud. So for VPC peering is not a self-service. You have to raise the ticket with MuleSoft. So they provide one template. You have to fill that template. You have to provide the detail. So MuleSoft will set up a VPC peering for you. So there is a one prerequisite for the VPC peering. AWS VPC and the MuleSoft VPC must be in the same region. So basically, if AWS VPC in US East 1, MuleSoft VPC must be in US East 1 to achieve VPC peering. Second thing, how we can achieve when we want to use IPsec tunneling. Let's consider if you want to connect a corporate data center or on-premise data center, correct? In that case, you can use IPsec tunneling. So if you want to connect Azure cloud, if you want to connect GCP, Google Cloud Platform, in that case, we can use IPsec tunneling. Even when you're like other use case is that my Anypoint VPC is in US East 1, my AWS VPC is in US East 2. If I want to connect both VPC, I cannot use the VPC peering because they both are in the same different region. For in such scenario, you have to go with IPsec tunneling. Okay. AWS Direct Connect is basically, it's it's kind of IPsec tunneling, but it's a faster way. It provides more bandwidth. It can transfer the data more faster, basically. What are the advantages of Anypoint VPC? So as I mentioned, it creates a secure virtual network within the cloud hub. It can connect the asset which is behind the firewall, deploy the Mule application within your space. You are not sharing your space now. You have your own subnet. You are deploying all your application within that particular subnet. Connect cloud hub to any public cloud or private cloud. This is wrong. This is private cloud or on-premise data securely, basically. Okay. So what are the Anypoint VPC characteristic? Multiple VPC can be created in the same region. So basically, you can create n number of VPC in your Anypoint platform. Always create a VPC in the same region or near to your data center or AWS region. So you have to always create a VPC in same region or near to a data center or AWS region for the purpose of VPC peering. All non-production environment like dev, test, SIT can be mapped to non-production VPC, and production environment can be mapped to the prod VPC. Multiple environment can be mapped to the same VPC. You can map a multiple environment with the same VPC. Let's consider you have a 3 environment. I have a production, I have a dev, I have a test. And I have a 2 VPC, production VPC and non-production VPC. With non-production VPC, I will map my dev and test environment. With production VPC, I will just map my production environment. It is recommended to create a VPC in the parent business group and shared with a sub business group. So basically in MuleSoft, there is a concept of master business group and the sub business group. Generally, it is recommended to create a VPC in a master business group, then shared with your sub business group. But there is no hard and fast rule. You cannot create a VPC in the sub business group. You can do that. So there might be an organization where we have a specific use case. So they want to create a VPC according to domains, like marketing domain have its own resources, like sales domain has its own resources, like other finance domain has its own resources. In that case, you can create a VPC in the sub domain also, sub business group also. Now this is very important. So let me tell you. So basically, let me go to Anypoint platform, and before I show the calculation, I can go to runtime manager. So any question? Okay. Okay. So what I'm doing, I'm going to my Anypoint platform. So I can go to in runtime manager, I can go to VPC. Under VPC, I can simply say create VPC. So for create VPC, you want a name, you want a CIDR block. So basically, this is the important block. So basically, you are saying, I want, this is my IP range I require. So how we can calculate this particular range? So generally, let me open one of the notepad. So generally, if you see, the minimum CIDR block supported by MuleSoft is 0/24 up, and maximum is up to 0/16. Okay, so I can say 0/23, enter 0/22, 0/21, like that. So it goes up to 16. So 0/24 provide 256 IP addresses, whereas 0/23 provide 512 IP addresses, 22 provide 1024 IP addresses, 21 provide 2048 host or IP addresses, whereas 16 provides 65,536 IP addresses. So how we can calculate this? What CIDR mask we required? Okay, so for that there's a calculation. Let me go. Where is my presentation? Are you like any question till now? Okay. So generally, like MuleSoft region and AWS regions are same because MuleSoft is using a AWS cloud in the background. So now I want to do my VPC sizing. So for that, let's consider I have a 4 environment: dev, test, SIT, and the prod. Application on the dev and SIT must run on one worker. Application on test must run on 2 workers. And application on production must run on a 2 worker. Okay, and total application I will have a 100. So from my customer I got the requirement. Customer told me in near future I will have a 10 application. So simply I multiply with 10, so it become 100 application. Always choose a higher range of VPC, because if like what happens once you have created the VPC, you cannot update the CIDR block. There is no option to update the CIDR block. In case you have to delete and you have to recreate a CIDR block. Okay, you have to create a VPC again. So let's consider I have a total 100 application. What I've done, I got 10 application. The customer told me near future I will have a 10 application. I simply multiply with 10. So this is just some standard guideline. There is no such rules. You can multiply by 20 also, but generally it's just the best practices. Always multiply by 10. The organization have a 2 VPC, one for prod and another for non-prod. The problem statement is that we need to decide the minimum CIDR block will be needed for prod and non-prod VPC. So these are the requirement. Now I have to do the calculation. So this is how we prepare the chart. Let me maximize it. So this is my production VPC. This is my non-production VPC. I map all the environment. Dev, SIT, test will be part of non-production VPC. Production will be part of production VPC. So for dev, I have 100 application deployed to one worker. It become 100 IP addresses. SIT 100 application, one worker, it become 100. Test 100 into 2, which become 200. Because as a test, I will deploy each application on 2 workers. So it become 2 IP addresses. On production, I have 100 application. Each application will be deployed to 2 workers. So it become 200. So for production, I got 200 IP addresses. I require 200 IP addresses. For non-production, I require 400 IP addresses. You also have to consider a zero downtime. So that's why, as per formula, you have to just take the 50% of your total, which will become 100. The 50% of 400, which will become 200. Then the total required 300. Total required 600. And there is a 2 IP address. Okay, 2 IP address is reserved. So it means I required for production VPC 302 IP addresses. For non-production, I required 602 IP addresses. Okay, so let me go to my chart. So I want 302. So I cannot get the 302 from this CDR block, but I can get it from 23. So I can map to this. and I can get 602 from 1024. So I want to select a CADR block of 0/23 and 0/23. For production, it will 0/23. For non-production, it will 0/22. Any doubt on calculation? So let Supriya, like if there's if time remaining, then we will definitely cover the static IP. Okay, but I don't think like it will take more time. I have like 7 to 8 demo which needs to be present. So I will try, so if some time permits, then I can look into that. So any doubt on this? So I will go to next slide. VPC sizing best practices. Always create a VPC in the same region or close to your data center or AWS region. So basically, why we are saying AWS region? Because we can achieve a VPC peering. Always choose higher or appropriate range of CIDR mask, because the CIDR mask cannot be updated once the VPC is created. To change the CIDR mask, we need to recreate a VPC. It requires downtime of the application. I will tell you why. So I have noticed one thing. So let's consider I create a VPC for my test environment, and now I am deploying my application to test environment. So basically, in that case, I have deployed like around 100 application. So it means I have 100 application in my VPC. Now I don't have any IP address remaining. In that case, you want to delete the VPC and you have to recreate. So basically, it will not allow you to delete also, because first you have to stop all the application. Okay, then you can delete only. Then you can delete the VPC. Otherwise, it will not allow to delete, because those 100 applications is a part of VPC. So there's a dependency on the VPC. So DPC will not allow to delete you. You have to undeploy or you have to stop all the application, and you have to like then you can delete the VPC and you have to recreate a VPC again. And when you start all the application again, it will automatically comes into that particular VPC. Okay, so there's a risk. So always make sure you select the higher range or your range of your VPC. So always choose a CIDR mask which doesn't overlap with your data center IP addresses or subnet. Why? So generally you want to select a CIDR mask which doesn't, the IP range which doesn't overlap with your private cloud or with your on-premise data center. Because when we will create a VPN, in that case, if any IP address overlap, right, then the particular application will never know where I have to route the requests, right? So let's consider I have choose some range, IP range, which is already overlapping with your on-premise application. In that case, I have extend my core. I have created a VPN between on-premise and I have created like on-premise and the cloud hub, right? In that case, there might be possibility of overlapping of a IP address. So just before choosing a CIDR mask, please contact your network team, get the unique CIDR mask, unique IP range, which is not used in your private cloud or in your data center. Always create a separate VPC for production and non-production environment. Always create a VPC parent business group and share with a child business group. So these are some best practices. Okay. Then I want to go to port. So generally, when you create a VPC, there are certain firewall rules. So generally, there's a http.port 8081. When you are deploying application on within the VPC on port 8081, it means that application can be accessible via shared load balancer publicly over HTTP protocol. When you deploy application on 8082, that particular application will be accessible over the internet on HTTPS. http.private.port 8091. When you deploy our application on port 8091, that application will be not accessible publicly. That application can be accessed within the VPC over HTTP protocol. Same goes with 8092. Only difference is it can be accessible within the VPC over the protocol HTTPS. So these are the 4 default firewall rules. You can add more firewall rule depending on your requirement. So let me go to a VPC demo now. So basically the first thing, I have to give a VPC name. So I can say Mule demo VPC. That's the first thing. Select the region, okay, proper region which is near to your data center or AWS region. So basically select the region which is correspond to your AWS applications, okay, or like near to your data center. Then you can give a CIDR mask. So I will say 10.0.1.0. So you have to, talk with your network team and get, so you can calculate the, that particular CIDR mask using VPC sizing, but that particular IP range, you have to get it from the network team. So in this case, I'm saying 10.1.0.1.0/24. Here you can select the environment. You can select multiple environment. I will select the production. In my case, I have only one business group, so it will automatically select one business group. If there are multiple business group, it will populate in this particular drop down. Then the firewall rules. So as I mentioned, so we have a 4 default firewall rules. If you want to add new firewall rules, you can do that. This internal DNS, like, it's kind of host file. In Windows we have a host file where we do the DNS and the IP mapping. So you have to do the same thing here. So for now, like, I am not creating any VPN, and I don't want to do the any intranet DNS and the IP address mapping. So simply I can create on the VPC, say create. Any question? Okay. So my VPC is getting created. So it will take like less than 1 minute for creation of VPC. My VPC has been created. So now go to application. So what I will do, I will try to deploy a 2 application. One is running on port 8081 and one is running on port 8091. So let's test it. So let me deploy those 2 applications. And I will also show you how we can get the internal IP address and the external IP address for your application. So let me deploy 2 applications very quickly. So I can say VPC 8081 app. So always make sure while deploying the application, you select the same region as your VPC. If you select any other region, you will get 50 bad gateway. Okay. Region must be same as a VPC. Otherwise, the application will not get deployed in your region or within your VPC. So I'm taking my 8081 and let me say deploy application. So like Nitish, you can unmute if anybody have any question, so you can unmute them so I can take the question.
Yes, sure. There's one question by Piyush.
Yeah, Piyush. Can you unmute the Piyush
Yes.
better? Like.
Done.
Yeah, Piyush. See, generally, you have to calculate the CIDR mask, right? You have to can we go on mute? There's a lot of disturbance, yeah. So Piyush, I will give you an answer. So basically, as I like, you have to calculate that VPC sizing. Then you can tell your network team, this is my, this is the mask I was looking for. Like, this is the range I was looking for, right? 0/23, 0/22. You can give it to your network team, and you can tell network team, you can provide me a IP range like 192.168.0.0/23, right? Anything. So you can contact your network team to provide the IP range which is not overlap with your private cloud or with your on-premise data center. Got it, Piyush? Okay. So let me deploy the second application, 8091. So I can say VPC 8091 app. Then I can choose upload file 8091. So make sure the region is same as your VPC. Deploy application. Anybody have any other question till application is deploying?
Jitendra, I have a question here.
Yeah, so yeah, Uday,
Okay.
go on.
So, when we deploy the application, basically we select the environment, right? and VPC is just the peripheral of the environments, right? So we normally select
go on.
We normally select the environment to deploy, and it will automatically be deployed under the VPC for which the environment is mapped, right?
Yes. So once you map the environment, right, whenever you deploy the application within that environment, it will automatically goes into the VPC.
Okay.
Now, Uday, there's one question I will ask you.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's consider I have few application already deployed. Then I am creating the application, right? So that few application will be not part of VPC, right? Because I have created VPC later.
Okay.
Right. So how can I bring those application into VPC?
So even though suppose we have earlier the application was deployed in US1, and we have set up our VPC in US2, right? So you mean that the application which was earlier deployed?
No. So let consider I have deployed my 4 application on US East 1.
Okay.
Now I have created my VPC also in US East 1. Now whatever new application I am deploying, that going into the VPC. But what happened? The previous 4 application still is not part of VPC. How can I make sure like they also get a part of VPC?
I think we need to restart, right?
Correct.
Automatically.
Correct.
Yeah.
Once you restart the application, it will be automatically part of your VPC. Okay. So yeah.
Dhirendra, I have one question. So when we deploy this application VPC 8081, how will come to know like this application will be deployed under that VPC only, which we created 5 minutes?
I think Uday just answer it. Okay. So basically, when you create a VPC, right, you map an environment, a production. In my case, I create a VPC. I map the environment.
We can't have multiple VPCs for one environment, right?
No. You can have it, but I don't think it's not a good practice. Okay. You should not do. It will not allow you. Basically, it will not allow. If you create a new VPC and if you try to map that environment, it will not allow.
So Jitendra, I have a question here. Suppose you as an organization as administrator, you have created VPC and you know the which for which region the VPC has been created. I as a developer go and select the test environment, right, and deploy. And I don't know which for which region the VPC was created. I selected a different environment.
Yeah. So then in that case, like the application will not deployed within the VPC.
Okay.
So you have to change the region. You have to make sure like you are deploying in the proper region. Okay.
Even though I have selected the correct environment which has been mapped with the VPC.
No, that's fine. Like, but you have to, while deploying the application, you also have to select the correct and correct region. Okay. So let me access this application on port 8081. So I'm trying to access. I got the response. Can I? I got that particular response. So it will be like saying response from that 8081. So I got the response from application 8081. Can we go on mute, please? Then let me try to access 8091 application. So I got 50 bad gateway. Now I cannot access my application deployed on 8091. Okay. So now if I want to find internal IP address for my application and the external IP address for my application, how can I do it? So what you can do, you can go to this particular thing. Then you can say mule worker internal, and you have to provide a app name dot region dot cloud hub dot io. So this is what you have to do. Okay. Then if you want to access an external IP address of that particular application, you can remove just internal. Okay, let me tell you. So let me copy this particular application. So in this my case, I want to find the like internal and external IP address for this. I will just replace app name and region with this particular thing. Just remove HTTP. Okay, so I will ping this. Copy. Go to your command prompt and try to ping. So basically, if you see, it's resolved with the IP address from your VPC 10.0. It is not accessible, right? But it will resolve with 10.0.1.69 IP address. Okay, so this is the range which we have given for the VPC. Then I want to find, I will just remove this internal, so I can find the external IP address. Even the external IP address assigned to this particular this particular application, but it will be not accessible, right? Even we got a reply, but it will be not accessible. Okay. So this is how you can find the external IP address and internal IP address. Any doubt on this? You got it, right? How we can find the internal and the external IP address? Okay. Let me go back.
Jitendra, what does it mean by the internal and the external IP address here?
See, generally, when you deploy the application, right? So there will be one customer facing IP address. So if somebody want to enter from the external, right? So he can use the public IP address. That is the public IP address. So internal IP address is basically when the application will communicate with other application, right? So it will use the internal IP address basically. So we have to whitelist that particular internal IP address and all those things. So basically, internal IP address will be assigned from your VPC range, and it will assign one public IP address. Okay, so now let me go to one more demo. So what I'm doing, so now I want to application which is deployed on 8091. So how can I access that? So basically it's very simple. So basically you can use the HTTP, and I can Mule Worker VPC 8091 app, then I can say 8091, then I can say test. Okay, this is my URL, but it will be not accessible from your browser. Okay, so it should be internal. Now what I will do, I will try to create one scenario here. So basically we have seen this particular scenario where we deploy the application on 8081 and we can access using shared load balancer. And then we have created, we have deployed application on 8091, but we are not able to access from the external consumer. Then how we can access it? We can use we can deploy one application on 8081, okay, which can use the internal URL. So basically, external consumer will send the request on application on port 8081, and that particular application will use the internal URL to communicate with 8091. So basically, these two applications can communicate with each other because they are falls into the same VPC. So basically, what I will do, this is my request component. In request component, I can use this Mule Worker internal VPC 8091. This application, I can copy this URL and I can paste it on in this particular URL. If you see the listener port, so my listener port is 8081. So 8081, this particular application will the public facing. So let me go and deploy this, but this is not a right way. There is other way we can do that. So but I will tell you first. Let me explain all the concept, like how we can communicate internally and all those things. So I can say desktop, I can save it to my desktop, save, finish. Then I can go to my Anypoint platform. I can say deploy application. I can say VPC 8091 access app. Okay. Then let me check whether it's exported. Yes. I can say deploy. Okay, so let's wait while application is deploying, so I can walk through, through the presentation also.
Jitendra, sorry to cut you. I have one query regarding this.
Yeah.
How can we allow external consumers to directly communicate with 8091 API?
Yeah, I'm coming on that. Okay. So next topic is dedicated load balancer. So I'm coming on that part.
Yep. Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah. So guys, it will be fine. Like if session can extend it for 10 minutes, right? So it will be fine, right? I think it may get extended. Okay. So I don't want to run in hurry. Otherwise, he will miss the concepts. Okay. So now I will come to a dedicated load balancer. So now I got a question. like when I deploy the application on 8091, how can I access those application using using publicly? Like how can I access it publicly? The answer is dedicated load balancer. So dedicated load balancer is the optional component in Anypoint platform which allow to route the external HTTP and HTTPS traffic to the multiple application deployed to the cloud hub within the VPC. So you can use your dedicated load balancer to route the traffic to the application deployed within the VPC over protocol HTTP and HTTPS. So when you create a dedicated load balancer, it gives one C name. So we can call this as its DNS also. We can call this a C name. So whatever load balancer name we will give .lb.anypointdns.net, which will resolve to two or more IP addresses, two or more public IP addresses. In case if you select 2 workers, it will resolve to 2 workers. If you select 4 workers, it will resolve to 4 workers. Okay. So this is the typical architecture of dedicated load balancer. So I have created my dedicated load balancer within the VPC. Okay, within the VPC. Now I have some application deployed F1, F2, F3 on port 8091 and 8092. So the external consumer will send the request on api.example.com. But if you see, dedicated load balancer expose this particular C name. So in that case, what you have to do, you have to do the public DNS registry where api.example.com can be mapped with this particular DNS. So whenever the request come on api.example.com, it will automatically route the request to lbname.lb.anypointdns.net. So you have to make sure you have to do the DNS entry in your organization registry, or in AWS you can use like route 3 and all those things, route 53 and all those things. So request come on api.example.com. The request will come to dedicated load balancer. Now dedicated load balancer is capable of accessing the application 1 application, depending on, so it will apply the mapping rules and it will route the request to corresponding application. So let me check if my application got deployed. Yeah. So let me try to access this like application on 8091. Okay. VPC dot, I think it's US East 1 dot.
Jitendra Anuranjan here.
I got the response. See, so this is what I've done. I have deployed the application on 8081 within the same VPC, which is accessing the application deployed on 8091 using the internal URL, and I got the proper response. But this is not a right way to do it. Okay, so I will tell you what is the right way to do that. So response from application 8091. So you should not do that. Like if you have a 10 application, you cannot create a 10 public application, right? So how we can make it publicly? That's what we are discussing. Like we can make it up a dedicated load balancer. So this is what architecture of dedicated load balancer. So what is the difference between shared load balancer and the dedicated load balancer? So basically shared load balancer is by default available in your all the environment. When you deploy the application, it gives one DNS. The DNS is nothing, it's a shared load balancer. So shared load balancer use the TCP, basic TCP load balancing. There's a one issue with shared load balancer. There's a rate limiting on the top of shared load balancing. So depending on the reason, the rate limiting increase or decrease, it depends on the reason. So in case if your number of requests reach to up to certain like threshold, it will start giving the error 503 service unavailable. You cannot configure a custom certificate on the shared load balancer. So how we can fix all this issue? The answer is dedicated load balancer. So basically one of the limitation is the lower rate limiting that can be issued with using dedicated load balancer. One of the advantage of dedicated load balancer is that all application can be hosted under the single DNS. So when you deploy the application on shared load balancer, right, in cloud hub, so what happens, each application have its own DNS, right? So to avoid that, you can have a single DNS, you can have a custom DNS using dedicated load balancer. Even you can configure a custom SSL certificate on dedicated load balancer. Dedicated load balancer also support two-way SSL handshake. Okay. Let me check. Yeah. So next slide. So there are few things like while creating dedicated load balancer, let me go to dedicated load balancer. So we will get more, better idea. So I can go to my dedicated load balancer now. I can go to load balancer. I can say create load balancer. Here you can give a name of the load balancer. I can say mule demo DLB. You can select the VPC, in which VPC I want to create a dedicated load balancer. Here I will say 2 workers. Okay, 2 workers. Here we have a 3 option: off, on, or redirect. Off means you will get a request on HTTPS. You will do the SSL offloading and transfer the request to upstream API on HTTP. On means you will get the request on HTTP. You will transfer the request to the upstream API on HTTP. Redirect, you are achieving SSL tunneling here. You will get a request on HTTPS and you will redirect a request to the HTTPS. Okay, in my case, I will just keep this particular thing. And whitelisted CID. This is also one of the important concept. So by default, all the public traffic, the incoming traffic is allowed 0.0.0.0, which means all the public traffic is allowed. If you don't want to allow all the traffic, you can define, like your client CID. Like if Salesforce want to connect with your application deployed on 8091, you can like specify their CIDR marks. So whenever the request come from the Salesforce, so it will allow the request from the Salesforce only. It will not allow the request from other client. Apart from that, add certificates. So at least you have to provide a one certificate. You can click on add certificates. So you have to provide the public key. So basically, let me go to. So basically, you can use the OpenSSL utility to generate a self-signed certificate. So generally, it is not recommended to use the self-signed certificate. It is always good to use a trust CA authority certificate. So you always generate a CA trust authority certificates. Okay, so there are few commands. I will share that slide. So you can use this command to generate a certificate: OpenSSL request new key RSA nodes, and this is my private key and this is my public key. So I have already generated the certificate. I can choose a public key. So let me go to certificates, LB Mule demo. I want to choose a public key first. Then I can choose a private key. Then there's an important thing, a mapping rule. Let me walk you through a mapping rule. So basically so now the dedicated load balancer will come to know where I want to transfer the request. Let's consider if you have a VPC. In your VPC, you have mapped 2 environment, test and dev. Now, how dedicated load balancer will come to know this particular request is for test environment or this particular request is for dev environment? How VPC will come to know? Sorry, how dedicated load balancer will come to know? Then a mapping rules come into the picture. So we will discuss these 2 mapping rules. The first thing, let me change it to present mode. So this is my order API and this is my product API. Okay, so these are the 2 API already exist in my environment. So I got a request on https api.example.com / application name, which is order API / version 1.0 / orders. So what will happen? Input path. So whatever you define in curly bracket, that is the variable. So here I'm saying my variable is app, the target app. So I'm saying what is my target app? So basically app. So this particular order API will be assigned to this app, and you can read this particular variable as a target app. Then it will form a URL http mule-worker internal order API. So basically this is the application name .region cloudup.io, and there will be port 8091 v1.0 / order. The request will transfer to the order API. In second case, I am getting the app name as a product API. So basically input path will be product API. So target app also become a product API. Okay, and the protocol is http mule worker internal product API. Here it will take app name.region. So app name will be the product API.us east1.cloudup.io. A port, I just forget to mention the port, semicolon 8091 version 1.0 / port. The request will transfer to product API. Let's go to the complex mapping rule. So now my dedicated load balancer has been mapped. My VPC has been mapped with the 2 environment, dev and test. So dedicated load balancer may have to route the request to dev environment or test environment. So what you can do, so generally you can do the 2 DNS registry. One is for dev.api.example.com. One DNS can be, so basically you can map a multiple DNS to one dedicated load balancer, and one is for test api.example.com. So basically, once I got a request on dev.api.example.com/application name version 1.0/orders. So here mapping rule input path, again the app, the input path app will become order API. Then the target app is like app hyphen subdomain. In this case, subdomain will be the dev. The first character before the dot is the subdomain in DNS. Okay. So in this case, my app name will become order hyphen API hyphen dev. Right. The target app will be order hyphen API hyphen dev. The subdomain is a keyword. It's a reserved keyword which will read a subdomain, the first character before the dot in your DNS. Okay. So now my application name will become mule worker internal hyphen order API dev dot us east on cloudhub.io 8091 version. So it will route to the development environment because my application name is order API dev in development environment. When request will come on testapi.com, it will become order hyphen API hyphen test. So my order API test is deployed in the test environment. So dedicated load balancer, will form this particular URL mule worker internal order API hyphen test us east one.cloudhub.io. That is how it will route the request. Any question on this mapping rules? Anybody have any question? Okay, so what I will do, I will go to my I will just save the certificate. By default, this is my mapping rule. I will save the certificate and I will say create a dedicated load balancer. So any application you have to use mule hyphen worker internal hyphen app name dot region dot cloudhub.io. You don't have to use IP address. You can use the DNS, the internal DNS basically. The IP address can change. When you restart the application, if you are not assigning the static IP, the IP address will change. So it is always recommended to use the DNS. So let me check. Yeah, my dedicated load balancer is starting. So before that, what I can do, I can go to my application. Or also you have to keep one thing in the mind. You cannot access the application from dedicated load balancer, which is deployed on port 8081 and 8082. Let me remove this particular application. I don't require it now because I've created the dedicated load balancer. Okay, now I want to access this particular application. So I can, copy. It's a VPC 8091. So let me wait if my dedicated load balancer is ready. Yeah, so my dedicated load balancer is ready. It will give one CNAME. So generally it is recommended to, if you want a custom DNS, you just do the DNS registry between DNS entry between that custom DNS and this particular URL. So let me ping this. So it will resolve with 100.25, one of these IP addresses. Okay. So now I will send the request to my application deployed on port 8091. So HTTPS, I can say, then my rule say app name, right? So my app name is VPC 8091 app/test. Enter. So it will give me this error because we are using the self-signed certificate. You can say proceed. Once I proceed, I got the response here. Okay, so you can see that without, we are getting, now we are able to route the request. It's saying response from application 8901. So let me explain what happened in the background. So this, I've sent the request on dedicated load balancer on this. So my inbound HTTP mode is off. So dedicated load balancer will do HTTP uploading and it will form URL like that. Then it will use mule worker internal. Okay. Then you have to provide the app name. So my app name is VPC 8091 app. Then the region US East 1 dot cloudhub.io 8091/test. So this is how it will change the URL from this URL to this particular URL. Okay. Now other question. I will take the question. Give me 2 minutes. Let me complete this particular thing. Okay. So now how dedicated load balancer will come to know I want to pick the 8091 or 8092. Okay. So I will tell you. So I can go to manage VPC. So generally, whatever port, like for HTTP, it will pick this HTTP.private port. So whatever port assigned against this property, it will pick by dedicated load balancer. If it was 8093, so dedicated load balancer may have converted this URL to, instead of 8091, it may use 8093. Okay, so that is how. For in case of HTTPS, it will use HTTPS.private port. Okay, so let me do one more thing. This is fine. If I try to access application 8081, let's see what happens. It would give some like bad gateway, right? So it will not able to access. Okay, so if you want to access application deployed on 8081, you have to use the shared load balancer. And if you have deployed the application within the VPC, so on port 8091, you have to use, or 8092, you have to use the dedicated load balancer. Yeah. So now I can take the question.
Regarding this, so when we created the dedicated load balancer and we were trying to access with the app name that we created, right, in the dedicated load balancer, but internally in the background that URL will form that mule internal worker URL, right? So that internal worker URL will be applicable for all the workers, right? Whether there are 3 workers or 4 workers or 2 workers. If you want to have a specific worker call, then is there any like way?
See, this is if you are deploying the application on 2 worker also, right? It will do automatically load balancer inside.
It will do automatically. Okay.
So yeah, see, if you are deploying the application on 2 workers, you are not saying like worker 1 or worker 2, right? It will do the load balancing also for that also.
So internally it will be a shared balancer will also get used there, right?
Yeah, if you see, yeah, it will do load balancing. Yeah, you are correct. Okay. You don't have to worry about that. It will do the load balancer.
Thank
okay.
You.
Any question on? I think like I try to explain the concept well on dedicated load balancer of VPC. Any question, Uday? Any question from your side or anyone? So Nitish can open his mic. Yeah, generally, Siva, it is not recommended to assign the say. Generally, I will not suggest you to do that. Like there will be a lot of there will be a lot of collide of IP. So generally, I don't think like it will not allow you to map the one environment with the multiple VPC. It will not allow. Generally, once you map the environment, it will not allow you to map the other environment.
Jitendra, I have a question here. In this case, the application might be in one of the environment, right? Maybe in test or maybe in a dev, right? So in this example, how it is going to map with the application in the test or dev environment?
So I mentioned right, no? So basically you have to define a DNS in such a way. So basically what I'm saying, so basically somebody has to call the test application, right? You have to send the request on test.api.example.com, right? So dedicated load balancer is using the subdomain. Subdomain is a reserved keyword. So it will read, so test from here basically, right? So it form like order API, order -API -test, right? So that application on this particular test environment. So it will access the test environment application. In my dev, I'm getting the request on dev.api.example.com, right? So in that case, subdomain will become dev. So the total application order -API -dev, so then it will access the like this dev application. So you have to be bit intelligent in such case, like what kind of DNS you are giving. You need to think on that part. What will be my application name? How I have to design my application name? What will be my DNS? So depending on, you can define your mapping rules. You can define your DNS. You can define your application name.
So are we going to decide here the mapping? I mean the DNS names and all that here. I mean in this example. Okay.
Yes. So we have done that, right? So we have done that, right? So right now, see, I am not doing any public entry right now.
Okay.
So I don't have any public registry, correct? So what I've done, I have directly used this particular C name, right, to access the application.
One question here.
And if someone is going to set up that the domain name according to their organization, like dev.
Correct.
capjourney.com, right?
like you can
So
say
how we can do that?
or
Is there
whatever.
any
Yeah.
thing that we follow?
So you have to define that, and you have to do the. So each organization have their public
Okay.
registry, right? So you have to. So basically, in a public registry, you have to pick this particular load balancer URL.
Okay.
Okay, and whatever like URL you want this particular custom DNS API.example.com, right? So that you have to map with this particular DNS.
Okay.
Okay, this particular DNS. So if you want to map two with this, right? So you can see API dev.example.com and API
So in
test.example.com.
in VPC,
right?
I mean in load balancer, where we can go and map it.
You don't have to. You have to go and map in externally.
Okay.
Like it is outside the
Okay.
MuleSoft. It's in public. It's in public DNS registry. So basically, all DNS goes into public DNS
Okay.
registry. Okay. So that you have to do. You need to check with your network team. So they will do. So in case of AWS, if your data center is AWS, you can do in Route 53
Okay.
basically. Okay. So yeah. So I think
Jitendra,
we have complete 1 hour. Let me
hello,
quickly
can you hear me?
complete. Like VPN also. Okay.
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
So generally, why we create a VPN? So generally VPN, like when you want to access the resources from your own premise data center, or so basically like from a private cloud, like you have deployed the application in the cloud hub, and now you want to access your local databases and all those things, right? In that case, you go with a VPN. So generally you can achieve a VPN in two ways, either dynamic or static. Okay, in case of static, like you have to define the static routes. You have to you want to know all your CIDR mask, which you have to connect to your on-premise resources. In case of dynamic, you can communicate over autonomous system number. So basically on ASN number, where like if any new subnet get added on your on-premise server, right, you don't have to worry. In case of dynamic routing, it will automatically communicate with those subnet also. But in case of static routing, like you have defined your VPN and everything, any new subnet got added, and you if you want to access the resources from that particular subnet, you have to take the CIDR mask of that particular subnet, and you have to add it in the static route of your VPN. So it may require restart and all those things. So in case of dynamic routing, we don't have to worry about that. So if you have a huge or bigger network, in that case, you go with the BGP or dynamic routing, and also make sure your on-premise routing device or VPN device support BGP. Most of the VPN device doesn't support the BGP, but all the modern device support the BGP. Okay. So this is how you can do the IPsec tunneling. Okay, and this is VPC peering we have already discussed. Okay, so let me quickly go to VPN demo. So now I can go to VPN. So I will try to create a VPN with GCP. So in my GCP, I can go to GCP. In GCP, I can go to, hybrid connectivity, and I can go to VPN. So I can say create VPN connection. I will use the classic one. Continue. Okay, so first thing, like I have to go to top. I can say I have to provide a name, mule demo -VPN1. You can select. I will select the default network, and you have to select the IP address. So I can select 1.4. So let me copy this IP address basically. So this is my remote IP address. So this is I will select this particular IP address, and I will go to MuleSoft Anypoint platform. I will say create VPN, and I can say Mule VPN. You have to select the VPC. The remote IP address just we have selected. You can create a VPC like static or BGP. We will go with BGP. So in this BGP routing, as I mentioned, like you have to give all the CIDR range, which which you have to connect to your on premises, And like either you can do automatic or custom configuration. In case of custom, you have to define a PSK for tunnel 0 and tunnel 1. PSK is nothing, it's a pre-shared key, it's an authentication key, and point-to-point CIDR mask. So basically you have to define the point-to-point CIDR mask. So basically these are the CIDR masks not allowed. You cannot define that. Okay, starting from 0 to 5, but you can use 169.255.6.0, 7.0, 8.0, 9.0, like that. You can use that. But this particular CIDR mask is not allowed. But apart from that, you can use anything. But I will recommend it. Always go with automatic. It's simple, and I will go with the BGP. Okay. So in case of BGP, I have to give a ASN number 6501 for the GCP, and for MuleSoft, I will use 64512. Okay, and I will say create a VPN. Okay, so let me share one more slide. So basically, when you create the VPN, you see various status pending, down. It means VPN connection is created, but action pending in the background. Available, down. So VPN has been successfully created, but remote side is not configured. Available, up, down. So basically, up means your VPN is up and running in active mode. So VPN up, down. The VPN is up and running in active passive mode. Failed. You have done some mistake while creating the VPN. So these are the various status you maintain. Let me check. Yeah, it's showing pending. So I need to wait for a few minutes. So till it create a VPN. Any question?
Yeah, Jitendra, I have question. We created a VPN connection on the Google platform, right? So does it mean our private cloud was on Google platform?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
So we created the VPN connection for that private cloud, and then we referred that IP address in MuleSoft Anypoint platform.
See, generally what happens when you are connecting with your data center, your VPN device will be there, right? So you have to get the remote IP address for that particular VPN device. Okay. Then you will get some configuration. Okay, so if you see, my MuleSoft is connected, right? But it's pending in down. So if you see status here, pending down. So we have to do some configuration at the backend side, remote side, right? So either what we do. So where is my? So in my case, I will do it manually. So what I can do, I can go to my where is my GCP? I can go to GCP. I can VPN tunnel, and I want I will set up the tunnel now. So VPN 1 tunnel 1, and I have to provide a remote IP. So let me copy a remote IP. So this is my tunnel 1 remote IP. This one. Okay. And you have to provide a PSK. So you can go to here. So you will get a PSK, which is you can copy this. Go to your VPN device. Okay. Then you have to define a router. So create new router. So I can say BGP or Mule demo router. Okay. So here you have to provide network default Google ASN. So we have used Google ASN as a 65001. We have given 65001. Simply say create. Okay. Now you have to define a BGP
it's any
session.
random number, right?
It's from 64512 up to 7000, something. You can select anything between them. Okay. And or otherwise you can talk with your network team. They can provide, if your VPN device already exists, right? So they might be assigning some like ASN number to that. So now you have to give a name to, I can say Mule, or I can say BGP. I can say BGP1. Okay. Then I have to provide cloud router BGP IP. So you can copy this point-to-point IP address. Okay. So I can provide this. Then I have to provide BGP peer IP. So you can copy this. Save and continue. Okay, you have to provide the peer ASN. That is the MuleSoft ASN, right? We given 64512 basically. You have to provide that. Save and continue. Okay, I can say done. I will add one more tunnel, which is I can say two VPN, two tunnel. And for tunnel 2, I have to pick this particular remote IP address. So this is my, I think this is my remote IP address. Configure here.
So why we needed two tunnel here? I mean,
so basically it's for like high availability, right? If one tunnel goes down, the second can communicate, right?
Okay.
Then we want pre-shared key. I can use the same router. Okay. Then I have to define a BGP session for that also. So I can say BGP2. Here ISN is 64512. Then I have to provide this particular IP addresses. Okay. So I have done with this set. You can simply say done. You can say create. So it will take some time for the creation. Okay, so let me go with some slide till that. Okay. So we have already discussed
the two information that we are seeing here in MuleSoft Anypoint, the two tunnel details, right? So
yeah,
we created these two tunnels, right? In the
it MuleSoft automatically created. Okay, so it yeah, we just provided this particular. And let's consider like for on-premise you have already have a VPN device, right? You got this remote, so you can, if you want like to provide a VPN configuration needs to be done on VPN device, right? You can go to get VPN config. So you can select your on-premise. I have a Cisco and like of AS5000 series and like 9.71. You can simply say view config. It will generate config. You copy that config, provide to the network team. Okay, so they will do the configuration at your end so that your that Anypoint VPN and on-premise VPN can communicate with each other.
So we need to import that VPN config here, right?
Yeah, see whatever we have seen, right? Whatever information we have seen against tunnel 1 and tunnel 2, right? So it's a same, it contains same information, no? But it's in file. So like network team can directly import that file into their VPN device, depending on their, it will generate file depending on the device which your data center have.
Yeah.
Okay. So next thing, the last diagram I will show you. This will give the full idea of So this is I have copied this diagram on the MuleSoft. This diagram is available on the MuleSoft site. So basically, like, if anybody want to connect the application on deployed on 8091, he can come to public internet and he can come to dedicated load balancer. Dedicated load balancer will apply the mapping rule and transfer the request, as I mentioned, like a mule worker internal app name, cloud of port 8091. Then it will check the firewall rule and it will access the application, right? Then apart from that, like if anybody want to access the application on port 808 deployed on 8081 and 8082, he can use the mule worker app name.cloudup.io, or even he can use the shared load balancer URL. So this is how you can access the application deployed on port 8081 and 8082. Okay, for this is my on-premise, right? For my on-premise, either he can use the internal load balancer URL. So there is also internal load balancer URL, or even he can directly use this particular mule worker internal app name.cloudhub.io from your corporate data center. If your VPN connection has been created between CloudHub and your on-premise data center, you can use the internal load balancer URL or internal application URL to access the application. You don't have to come via all like via public internet or whatever. You can use the internal URLs. Let me check what happened to my VPN. So also I have to check on my, here it's good. Cloud VPN tunnel. So you can see the connection has been successfully established on GCP. Let me check here. You can see one of the tunnel is up. So tunnel 2 will also come up. Sometime it take like 10 to 15 minutes for tunnels to come up and down, So tunnel one, at least one tunnel is up. So our connection and everything is fine with your the GCP now. So that is how you can create a dedicated load balancer, VPN, VPC Okay, so I hope like you got like what I have done in this particular demonstration, right?
Yeah, right, Jitendra. And one more I would like to just confirm. I think you have already clarified
Yeah.
the BPC VPN config that we got from the MuleSoft Anypoint platform. We need to share with the network team, and they will just import it in the private cloud, and that the setup will be done, right?
Yeah, now it's depends, like either they can read the file and they can do
Okay.
the manually also, or if they have capability they can just you have to provide that file, the network team will
Okay,
understand
so
what they have
whatever
to
the
do.
steps that we did in no, the Google Cloud for setting up the mapping the
Yeah.
VPN with the Anypoint, we don't need to do that if we just directly import. Okay, got it.
No. You don't have to. You have to get the VPN IP address, and in
Okay.
case of BGP, right, you have to get the TSN number. Okay, and apart from that, in case of static routes, in case of static routing, you have to like get that remote IP address of your VPN device, and secondly, you have to get all the static routes. So all your subnets where you have to connect
Yeah.
in your on premise. So yeah, Anuranjan Arya. So why do we need the VPN when see VPN is basically is used to connect your on-premise databases. Now I have deployed my application in VPC, right? Now how I can connect the database which exists in private cloud, which exists in on-premise network, right? Which exists in corporate data center. For that we require the VPN. Via VPN connection, you can access the databases and everything
Hello,
available
Jitendra,
on
can
your
you hear me?
on-premise.
Hello.
ASN is nothing. It's autonomous system number. Basically, it's a way of communicating, between two VPNs. Basically, it's a more dynamic way. So, right? Yeah. So Nitish, what I will ask few questions. We can run up. So I have done with my demonstration and everything. So I will share this PPT on the event page. So you will get the recording and everything on the event page. So you can access the recording and everything from the event page basically. Okay. So I will put everything there. So you can get it there. You can get those things from there basically. Okay. So I have a few questions. So like let me so basically when I say go, then you give the answer, right? If you try to give the answer before go, it will be not considered. So I want to select the 3 winner. So basically what protocol we use for dynamic routing?
BGP.
No, you have to write the answer. So like Nitish, can you take this top 3 like you can quickly copy this top 3 people?
Sure.
BGP is the answer. So generally we select 9 out of 9. We will like drill down to 3 people. Can I go with second question?
Yeah,
Nitish,
sure.
can I go with
I have
second
taken the
question?
names.
So basically, how many IP addresses we get in 0/23? So answer is 512. So basically, like Nitish, pick the unique one. Okay. So I think Anand is already picking the first slot. So
Yeah,
pick
sure.
the unique name from this.
Yeah. So last question, right? Yes.
Yeah, no, you have picked 3
Yeah,
people,
I did.
Nitish. Okay. The next question, like let me ask on dedicated load balance. Let me check what question I can ask. I have a question like, how can I restrict uh, the external consumer to access my application? My application via access the application via dedicated load balancer. Yeah, Anil. So like Nitish, whitelist is the answer. So Anil, you can
Okay.
pick Anil. Akshay and Suman. Just pick Firewall. Like
Okay.
you can pick Anil also. Okay. Anil. Whoever give the white
Okay,
list,
okay, okay.
that is the answer.
Just give me a second. I'll just tell you the names. So I need to choose 3 from every questions, right?
Yeah, but unique one. Like if anybody got selected in the first, right? They are selected.
Okay,
Don't
okay.
select again here, right? Have you select? Have you got it?
Just
All the name?
copy pasting so that I can share with you. Second question. Second question's answer was 512.
Yeah. Yeah, Nitish, you can
Just
quickly,
give
you
me a
know,
moment.
paste.
Actually, Vipin and Anand is repeatable for seconds, so just picking the unique one.
Or you can share your screen and you can use this particular link, you know. And do you know how to do this?
No, I'll share the names with you. Just give me one more minute. Just give me one more minute.
Yeah.
Done for 2. Just picking up the third questions. Yes.
And it is
Almost. Nil. Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
you ping me.
So for third, Anil and
No, you can ping me chat. You know, in the chat.
yeah. Yes, I have pinged you
Have you pinged me?
and in the chat.
Where?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
It's in DMs.
Okay.
So I'm just picking out for the third one as well, because Anil was in second question, so I have to pick the unique one. So Akshay and Suman.
And guys, like, you know, so after this session, you will receive a feedback form. So it is like, you know, I will request everyone to give the feedback. No, so if any suggestion for any topic in the future, you can give a suggestion. If anybody want to become, you know, a speaker, he or she
Jackie,
can connect
please
me, you know?
take these 3 names as well.
Or
Yeah. Actually, I
just
gave
a
you
minute.
6. I need to give total 9, right? Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
actually, there was I need to pick Unix. So yeah, done.
this is not, you know, this is the stop. Just a minute. Just a minute. Yeah. So let me put all the name. Okay. So we have Akshay Joshi, Vipin, Suman, Vivek, Sumit, Akshay. Yeah. So we have a Suman 2 times, like.
No, Suman. Oh, yes.
3, 4,
My
5,
bad.
6.
Even my Sumit Ahuja.
Yeah. Sumit Ahuja is also twice. Okay.
Let me check. Yeah.
Nitish, it will be Subhedaya and Abhin BT.
Yes. Suvidya and Abhin.
Okay. So let me
Yeah,
remove like
Suvidya and
Sumit is two
Abhin.
time, right? These two names always comes.
Yes.
Okay. So let me start. Now all names are unique, right? So I am selecting just first winner. Yeah, Sumit, like, can you just, Sumit is the winner for the first. Sumit, can you ping your email address in the
Yeah,
chat
sure.
window?
I'll ping.
Yeah.
Suvidya always wins. So I have an email address of
Yes.
Suvidya. That's fine. Now third winner is Abhin. Again, you have won.
Congratulations, everyone.
Yeah. So everyone can so can you just ping your email address and your name, and so we can send you email for the voucher basically. Okay. So like we don't have such like much time for the networking. So
Yes.
I think this session for 1 hour, but it extend for the 25 minutes. So like thanks everyone for your cooperation and your patience. So I hope you like you have learned something from this particular session. Thanks everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Jitendra. Thank you for nice presentation and good information.
And guys, please provide the feedback. So like any suggestion for the future, you can provide us like, for any topic or anything. You will receive the mail and you have a chance to win a $50 also. Yeah. Thanks everyone. Thank you.